heard the saying, death and taxes, there's no escaping them. Generally considered to be tax season, and everyone is involved. You have certain expenses that you've incurred, and the CRA, according to its rules, mandates which Oh hey, welcome everyone. Welcome back to Canadian CMI YouTube channel. And the topic of today's vlog is going to be another relevant topic to all Canadians or permanent residents that are residing in Canada, and that is, guess what? The topic of taxes. I'm sure you've heard the saying, death and taxes, there's no escaping them. And that applies truly to any North American resident. So what do we do? Well, I'll share with you my experience. Again, I'll just share with you what I have gone through and how do I go about preparing for taxes. It is tax time. Remember, in Canada, February the 20th till April 30th is generally considered to be tax season, and everyone is involved in prepping up and collecting the documents and filling out the necessary forms, contacting their accountants, and getting ready for filing taxes, because the CRA, which stands for the Canada Revenue Agency, has set the deadline this year for May 1st, 2023. So we have to file our taxes before that time, and also not just file the taxes. If there's any taxes that you owe, you should be paying those taxes before that particular date as well. Again, for any kind of professional advice, please contact a certified accountant. I am not a certified accountant by any means. I am not an expert. I'm just sharing with you my experience and some general tips that can help you start getting prepped up for taxes. I always recommend everyone, if you're new to Canada, or even if you're not new in Canada, if you do not know what you're doing and if you're not sure, please get the help of someone that's an expert in filing for taxes. I use Turbotax, which is a popular service that's offered. It's a popular tax preparation and tax filing service in North America. So I do use TurboTax to file my taxes. And I'll post the link for everyone out there that is interested in using TurboTax. They have a great service. I've been satisfied so far. They have different charges for different types of services. So make sure to check out the link that I posted in the description. So now that we know that we need to get certified help, or we can even file taxes on our own, what are the first things that you need to do or to start getting prepped up for when you're trying to file for your taxes? Well, the first thing that you have to do is collect all your documentation. Remember, if you're working somewhere, if you're working with a full-time employer as in a specific role, which is it's a contractual obligation. I wouldn't say contract. If it's an actual full-time permanent job, you will be getting a T4, which is a statement of earnings that you get from your employer. You usually get it at the end of February, in the next year. So for example, let's say that you were working all of 2022 and you have been working till December 31st, 2022, you're required to file taxes. So you should be filing taxes even if you're not earning money, because there might be certain credits that you might be eligible for. So make sure to, collect all your documents. So I'm reviewing one here, that's my T4, something that's it looks like something like that. And basically the T4 is a form, it's called a statement of remuneration paid from that particular employer. So if you're working for multiple employers, you might be getting multiple T4s. So make sure to start collecting all these documents. The first document will be if you're working in a full-time job, you need to collect your T4. Then you need to start, collecting other documents. Herein lies the help that will be of value if you're going through a certified consultant or a certified tax preparer. I use TurboTax, and they actually tell me, hey, they ask me to answer some questions, and based on those questions, they ask me they ask me for additional documentation. So everyone's situation varies, everyone's circumstances are going to be different. So what might be a certain requirement that's needed for you, for another person, they might not have to provide the document. So the first thing that you have to do is start collecting all these documents. Talk to your accountant. If you're using a preparation service, make sure to collect all the relevant documents that you need for filling out your tax return. Some other documents that might be needed, let me give you my example. So let's say that, so in my case, I do use childcare, right? I drop off my daughter to a childcare facility, and at the end of the filing year, or let's say in the next year, let's say that you have paid up till December 31st, 2022. Let's say that you've been using childcare services. So in the next year, in the following year, 2023, you'll be getting a receipt or a tax receipt from the childcare facility, and a certain percentage of that. Again, I'm not too sure how much. My accountant's dealing with that. Those are the nitty-gritty details that accountant will help you with. Which is why TurboTax can help. Check out the link in the description. So a certain percentage of that childcare expense will reduce my tax liability. So it could be a lot of different documents, right? Medical expenses. So if you're keeping a record, if you have had medical expenses that you incurred in a certain tax year, keep receipts, keep a track record, and submit them to your accountant or your tax preparer, because you might be eligible for certain deductions and certain credits. So the way the Canadian tax system works is that if you have certain expenses that you've incurred, and the CRA, according to its rules, mandates which expenses can be used for tax credits, for tax deductions, then you can use a percentage or maybe all of that, or depends on what those expenses are, what's the nature of those expenses. You can use a percentage of those expenses to reduce your overall tax that you'll pay at the end of the year. So make sure you're talking to a prepared, to a proper certified tax service that can provide you the proper guidance and counseling into what expenses can be used, to deduct your overall tax liability, to reduce your overall tax liability. Now, every particular employee, if they're working in a full-time job, they might be doing some side hustles and whatnot. And in that particular case, if you are having some side hustles, if you're doing some kind of extra part-time gigs, for example, if you're doing Uber on the side, if you're doing consulting on the side, check out my other vlog in terms of if you want to learn how to make extra money on the side. In Canada, you can check out that particular vlog as well. I made a vlog on that a couple of weeks ago. So if you're doing side hustles, you will have to submit some extra documents for that as well. You might have to submit how much money you made, what were your expenses. So make sure, again, this is a very important tip. Keep track of all your revenues and expenses from your side hustles. Keep track of all keep copies of all the receipts. Keep the documentation, because guess what? The CRA might require you to submit them at any point, during a certain time frame, once your tax returns are being prepared, or even after that. So make sure you keep all those records. Maintain an accurate inventory of accounting records, of financial statements, if you're doing side hustles, so that you are in tip-top shape come CRA audit time, because you can get audited. Now, when I went through preparing my taxes for this year, I checked out Turbotax, as I mentioned, and I checked out their website, and there were lots of different options. So you have the self-employed option, you also have the assistant review self-employed option, and then there's a full service self-employed option. Now, you got these three options in here, and let me explain to you what these options are. Let's say that if you want to go with option number one, which is self-employed, in this case, if you just want to, do your own taxes personally, and you don't have a very complicated tax situation, you can go with this. It's a lot cheaper. It's $50 per return Canadian. But let's say that if you would like to get more industry-specific knowledge about the deductions that you can avail so that you can reduce your tax liability, then I would suggest going with option number two, which is assistant review. And the difference between this option and the first option is that in this particular option, you actually get help from. You get live advice from a tax expert in option number two. And then there's the third option, which is a complete full service option. And in this particular option, you don't have to do anything. You just collect your documents, submit it to TurboTax, and they will do all the taxes for you. So those are some descriptions about the different options that are available to you if you decide to go the TurboTax route. Again, there's different companies out there. So there you go, everyone. That's the whole process for, that's the process that I followed. Again, everyone's preparation time will vary depending upon how many documents you have to collect, depending upon your individual circumstances. So let's say that you're married, you have kids, well, then you have to also make sure that you are submitting, if you're filing for taxes with your spouse, you need to make sure that you have their T4s, their medical expenses, their childcare expenses, and whatever expenses that they have incurred, make sure to include them in the tax return together. It's always advantageous from what I've learned if you are married and if you are filing together for tax purposes, you can offer, the accountants, and there's always accountants can always find some legal ways on making sure that you pay less tax legally in a legal manner. There are different rules and different provisions that they know about, that they can use to make sure that you don't pay as much tax. Because remember, at the end of the day, it's not about how much money you make in Canada, it's about how much money you keep in your pocket. All right, there you go. That brings us towards the end of this vlog. Again, if you're new to this channel, I make vlogs about life in Canada, about travel adventures, not just in Canada, but also around the world. So make sure to subscribe to this channel. You will find all kinds of content. You will find travel-based content, and then you will also find educational, informational content, such as these vlogs that can help you, with your life in Canada. Let me know in the comments, guys, what you thought of this vlog, and if you like this channel, make sure to subscribe. Until next time, bye-bye from Canadian. See ya, and remember what I always say, keep on trekking.